Hey there! So today we are going to be making a terrarium for isopods. I am going to be getting some new isopods here in a few weeks, so I wanted to make sure that the enclosure had the right humidity and everything was running smoothly for when I introduce the isopods in a couple weeks. So I've got all of the things here that are going to be necessary in order to give them the best environment to live in, and we're going to put it all together. So first of all, I ordered this acrylic enclosure off of Amazon, and I put it together, and hopefully it will retain enough humidity that it will be the right temperature and humidity levels for the isopods to thrive. I also ordered some moss and a fern off of Etsy from Reign of Terra, and hopefully I know what I'm doing to not kill them, and they will survive in this enclosure. I also have some sphagnum moss here, and this is, there's some leaves and things in here as well because it came from another project that I was working on. We've got some acorn caps that I collected from outside of my work, and I put them in the freezer for about 3 days to make sure there's no hitchhikers on them, and they're going to be nice for the enclosure. I've got some pine cones that I cleaned up, made sure there was no hitchhikers. We've got our springtails. We have some wood for their hide. This is cork bark. We've got some charcoal that helps the springtails, and we also have some leaf litter. So I also have these sticks that have lichen on them, and I also put this in the freezer for a few days to make sure that there was no hitchhikers. These just recently fell off a tree nearby my job as well, and so we'll see how we can incorporate all of this into the enclosure. And then we also have arguably one of the most important parts of the entire terrarium, and that would be the soil. So this soil is a mixture of sand, topsoil, and coconut fiber. The coconut fiber to hold in moisture, the sand and soil in order to, kind of create that natural mixture that you would have outside. I'm going to be pouring it into this box here so that we can make sure that it's all mixed together, because we will be needing to add some other things to it as well. So like I said, there is sand, soil, and some coconut fiber. There's also some pieces of like lizard's shed because it came out of my bearded dragon's enclosure. So there's also some other pieces of like collard greens and whatnot, which the isopods will be more than happy to munch on. So you got the collard greens in there. So that's the base of it. We're going to add a little bit of water to this to moisten it up. That seems like a lot, but once you mix it all in, it won't be. Because you're not going to be able to, when you're misting it every day, not going to be able to get down to the bottom. So you want to start with a good moisture level. And then as it dries out, that's fine, but at least it's there. So if they want to dig into the bottom to get more moisture, then they have that option. Also with the plant roots, they can go down deeper and get to some more moisture. But you want to start off with a good moisture level, and then it'll all balance out. Now I will also preface this with, I would say, still a beginner isopod keeper. I am not an expert. There are some really good channels that can give you more in-depth information and explanation on things that I just don't have the knowledge of yet. And some of those people would be the Bio Dude. You've got Juice's arthropods. If you keep tarantulas, there's some other people for that. But for isopods, you've also got Mike's Bug Box. And there's just some other good channels around there that can give you better information on more in depth. This is if you are a beginner and you are looking to see like what are other beginners up to, well, this is the spot for you. I'm learning as I go. I have had some colonies thrive and I've had some that have not thrived. And this is what I've learned so far along the way that is working for me. So this is pretty good moisture level. You've got a little bit of stick for it to clump together a little bit, but not too much. So it's not like sopping wet to where it's going to grow any mold. There's also some like mulch and rocks and things, which is good because then that gives it a little bit of air and it doesn't get so compact. But on that same note, I'm going to mix in some of this sphagnum moss, and there's also some snake shit in there as well. So I believe this came out of a different isopod enclosure. I'm just going to moisten it up real good because, and that's just a plant stem or something. But I'm just going to moisten that up and then squeeze out any excess. And then I'm going to spread that around in the soil so that it gives it some more, it puts more air pockets in there. And then I'm just going to dump this extra stuff out. It just kind of fell off. This is a piece of cuttle bone. So this has calcium, and the isopods will eat that as well. So I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm just going to save the rest of this for later. I'm going to mix in this piece of calcium as well. So mix that in. And that way, if it does have moisture in that moss, it'll stay pretty moist throughout its lifetime in there. We also have some leaf litter here. I'm going to add some of that. Some of it we're going to keep whole, like this beautiful magnolia leaf. We're going to leave whole because we're going to be putting that on top, and it's going to make like a little hide for the isopods. All right, mix that in a little bit. And now I think we're ready to add it to the enclosure. And this cool little enclosure does come with a little thermostat and hydrometer so that you can see, what the temperature is looking like. I don't know how accurate it is. It does seem like it is pretty accurate. Our thermostat is set to 71 and it's reading 71 on here, and our house usually sits around 50% humidity, so that all of that seems actually pretty accurate. So now that I've gotten this mixed up, I am going to be adding this to the enclosure. And you do want a good amount of substrate. It should be between 4 and 5 inches deep so that the isopods have plenty of room to burrow if they want to and have their own gradient of moisture that they want. So honestly, I don't even know if there's too deep of substrate that you can have for them. They thrive in deep substrates, and I'm actually going to take that out. Okay. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, that's a couple inches deep. Let's see. I would say that's maybe like 3 inches deep. They could probably go for a little bit more. Let me be right back. Okay, so I did add a little bit more. As you can see, now we're up to more of like a 4-inch deep soil, and that's kind of what we're looking for. Now, I will say that these holes are a little bit big, so there could be some escapees depending on the type of isopod that you're keeping. For the isopods that I'm looking at, I don't think that that's going to be an issue, but if you have an arboreal kind, they do like to climb up the walls of your enclosure and they could get out. So maybe get one that has holes instead of these slits, something I didn't think about, and hopefully it's not an issue. All right, some other things that we're going to be adding are pretty much the decorations. These little acorn caps do act as a hide for the isopods and for the springtails. The isopods may eat them, which is just fine. That's what they're there for. And then we're also going to be adding our cork bark. Now, there does need to be a gradient of dry and moisture. I'm going to also, almost forgot to add. Now, I do feed my isopods. I feed them fish food that has protein and calcium, so they will have a supplement, but I also like to give them some calcium as well. And I also forgot to add some of this charcoal. Charcoal helps the isopods breed, so I do want to add some of that. I think it's supposed to be mixed into the soil, so we'll do that. Okay. There we go. And some of those acorn caps got mixed in, but that is just fine. It'll give them a little something in the soil to look at. So as far as that goes, we're going to add more leaf litter. And this one I'm going to leave whole so it gives them coverage. And we also have to decide, that one was a little big. We also have to decide which side's going to be moist and which side is going to be dry. I'm going to say that the right side is going to be the moist side. So with that being said, I'm going to add some more sphagnum moss. Okay. And then I'm going to be putting one hide over here and then one hide over here. We've also got our moss right here. So usually you want to wash your hands before, which I did, and I rinsed them really well. And honestly, I'm very new to moss. And it does feel like it's pretty moist still, but I'm going to separate this out a little bit. Oh, beautiful. Let me bring it closer. So this is star moss. You can kind of see that there's a little, it kind of looks like little stars. So that's what we're going to be putting in this enclosure. And I was reading on BioDude's website how to like plant and care for it. And I guess if you put it on wood, it'll like grow on it. I honestly have no idea what I'm doing. So I think anything I have extra, I'm going to be putting in my other isopod enclosures. Oh yeah, look at that. So let's see. I might take that out and put that. Oh yeah. Beautiful. I'll show you a close up when we're all done here. And then I did dechlorinate my water for this project with ReptiSafe. That's, you know, you use it for your reptiles and anything else that needs it, dechlorinated turtles and whatnot. And so this bottle does have dechlorinated water in it. And so I did put it on the wood because that's what BioDude said to do. And I'm just going to make sure that it's, and you mist it, you don't water it. And then I'm also going to mist the sphagnum moss, because what I want to see is what the moisture level looks like. I did have an incident of me trying to figure out the enclosure, you know, how it works and everything, but I ended up creating mold, and so I think that this ventilation will actually help a lot with that. And then we're going to have the dry side over here, which is when this fern comes in, so this is a mini forest fern. And this fern, it likes drainage, but it also likes to be somewhat moist. So I think that'll be a good combination. And it looks like there's moss in here to keep the fern alive. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. She did send instructions with the plants. It says water the fern when the surface feels dry, so it should be okay here for a little bit. Planting it in here on the dry side. And then it looks like it also came with this other little moss and plant here. Beautiful little plant. And I just love how it looks in here. So we'll see how it survives. That's why I'm planting this early, why I'm getting the enclosure ready early so that it has plenty of time to establish itself before I go and add my isopods. And I'm just going to be putting this piece of cork bark over here so they have a dry side and a moist side. And I've got this moss here as well. I'm going to add that to the other enclosure. And I also have a couple pine cones. They can also use that as their place of hiding. And then we've got our magnolia leaf that actually may be too big for this. It's a bit much, but I think we can make it work. I'm trying to make it look as neat as possible. And a stick of lichen, which we don't want to be on the moist side because we don't want it to have grow mold. And so we're going to keep that on this dry side. And I think I'm going to sprinkle a couple more acorn caps just for some more interest. A couple more leaves are going to go on top of the sphagnum moss anyway, to make sure that there's plenty of hiding places, because I think I know what kind of isopod I'm going to get, and I want to make sure that they have plenty of places to hide because they are kind of shy until they get up in numbers. If you think you know what kind of isopod I'm going to be getting, drop it in the comments below. But I think that's about it. And then the last but not least, we are going to add our cute little springtails. Oh goodness, there's plenty of them. So we're just going to tap them in here. And they should get to work. And there's plenty more in there. So what I like to do every time I add them to an enclosure, I feed them again so they can continue producing. So this is just a piece of white rice. And then you spritz it with some water so it creates mold. And you put the lid back on. And that is all you do to keep them alive. And these are just temperate white springtails. All right, I think that's it. That is my enclosure. Let me give you a close-up of this so that you can see what we did here today. All right, so we've got our dry side with our lichen and our fern. And then we've got our moss that's actually on a piece of cork bark, so they can hide underneath of it and they can enjoy the moss. They do like to eat that as well. And your moist side, and they've got plenty of places to hide and eat on. They can hide in the pine cone or the acorn caps. They can eat on the leaves, hide underneath the leaves. And then it will also look very neat whenever I have them in there and I can put this on display and enjoy the beautiful little nature scene that I have going on. So that's all for today. I am going to let this sit over the next few weeks as it kind of does its own thing and gets established before I add the isopods in a few weeks after I see what I can find at the expo. And I have one in mind. And again, if you think you might know what that is, it is pretty popular. It is pretty cool looking. If you think you know what kind of isopod that I'm going to be picking up or which ones I should get, drop it in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you next time when we're adding the isopods. Bye.